The station master raised his lantern right up to my face. In the flickering yellow light, the rain, dripping from the brim of his cap, looked like beads of oil. He stared at me for a long moment, then spoke in a halting, gravelly voice. Blackwood Manor. You're actually going to Blackwood Manor? But why, son? I adjusted my coat collar against the damp wind. Mr. Mortimer Graves placed an advertisement in the paper. He needs an estate manager. $300 a month? That's the offer, isn't it? The station master asked, a cynical smirk playing on his lips. Yes, that's right. But how did you know? They all said the same thing, he muttered, shaking his head. Who? The ones before you. In the last 8 weeks, 8 men have stepped off this train and walked down that road to Blackwood Manor. But let me tell you something, mister. Not a single one of them ever came back this way. You understand? Not one. I frowned. What does that mean? I don't know the meaning of it. I just know the facts. Every one of them arrived just like you, on a Saturday, on the 6 o'clock train. It's a strange business. Why does a recluse like Mortimer Graves need 8 managers in 8 weeks? My gut tells me something is very wrong. Do you know Mr. Graves personally? I asked. I've only heard the name. He bought that dilapidated old estate a short while ago and moved in. There are plenty of rumors floating around town. Nobody has ever seen him during the day. That old house sits there like a tomb while the sun is up. But at night, they say lights burn in the windows. It's a strange place. And look at the sky. It's a new moon tonight. Pitch black. The clouds are stacking up. A storm is coming. I had my prize bulldog, Rover, on a leash beside me. He tugged towards the road leading to the manor, eager to move. I decided not to listen to the station master's rambling. The man was probably a bit touched in the head. Otherwise, why would he spout such nonsense? As I started walking, the station master called out one last time. Mister, are you dead set on going? That's the plan, I replied. Then watch your step. Just before you reach the manor, there's an old cemetery. Folks say it's haunted. After sundown, nobody around here dares to walk past it. I couldn't help but laugh. You're trying to scare me for no reason, my friend. I'm not a coward. If necessary, I could spend the night sleeping in that graveyard. The station master looked at me with the kind of pity one might show a man being led to the gallows. He gave a faint, sad smile, but said nothing more. The Blackwood Manor stood by a bend in the river, isolated and imposing. After walking a mile through the mud, I stood before its massive iron gates just as the rain began to pour. There was no gatekeeper, no sound from the lodge. I pushed the rusty gate open and walked in, holding my hurricane lantern high. It was an ancient estate. The gardens were so overgrown, they looked more like a jungle than a lawn. The pond was covered in thick scum, and the stone steps leading to it were crumbled. The house itself was in a sorry state. Broken windows, peeling stucco, and rotting pillars. It seemed suspicious that a landlord willing to pay $300 a month would live in such ruin. Aside from the deafening chirp of crickets, there was no sign of life. Yet, lights flickered in the upstairs windows. I hesitated, then shouted, "Hello? Is anyone home?" From a room at the front of the hall, a deep, hollow voice replied, "Come in." I entered. It was a cavernous room, choked with cobwebs and shadows. The walls were stained with soot, and the floor was coated in an inch of dust. The only furniture was a rotting table, 3 broken chairs, and a large oil lamp. Sitting on one of the chairs was an incredibly thin, skeletal old man. He was shirtless, his skin the color of charcoal, and every rib in his chest was visible. The old man spoke, his voice sounding as if it were echoing from inside an empty pot. "Who do you want?" "Mr. Mortimer Graves." "Oh, you must be the new manager. I understand. No need to explain. Sit down." As I stepped closer to Mr. Graves, Rover suddenly let out a low, menacing growl. Mr. Graves recoiled, his voice sharp with anger. "Why did you bring a dog? Will he bite?" I pulled Rover back. He stopped growling, but retreated to a corner, fixing his sharp, suspicious eyes on Mr. Graves. "Dogs are not allowed here," Graves snapped. "Chase him out." "He won't leave even if I chase him," I said firmly. "Rover never leaves my side. He sleeps in my room at night." "He sleeps with you at night?" Graves looked genuinely distressed. "What a disaster! What a disaster!" He began to mutter to himself, looking deeply worried. I couldn't understand why a dog sleeping in my room would cause such anxiety. After a moment, Graves stood up. "Wait here. I will arrange your food and lodging." "There's no need to rush," I said. "Let's discuss the job first." "Not tonight. I am not feeling well. We will talk tomorrow morning." With that, Graves shuffled out of the room. He returned shortly after. "Come, everything is ready." I followed him through a maze of dark corridors and up a creaking staircase. The upstairs was just as dilapidated as the ground floor. Dust, debris, and the fluttering of bats were everywhere. Not a single servant was in sight. He led me to a small room that was cleaner than the rest. There was a simple cot with bedding and a plate of food on a side table. "Eat quickly," Graves said, "or the food will get cold." I sat down to eat, lost in thought. Suddenly, I looked up and saw Graves staring at me intently. In the dim light, His sunken eyes seemed to burn with two distinct points of fire. As soon as our eyes met, the fire vanished. I had never known human eyes could glow like that. It sent a shiver down my spine. "I will leave you now," Graves said, backing toward the door. "Eat and get some sleep. And listen. Do not open the window tonight. It's raining, and besides..." "Besides what?" I asked. "Why did you stop?" "That window overlooks the old cemetery." "So? What if it does?" "You might see things, or hear noises that a living man shouldn't see or hear at night." I chuckled dismissively. "I don't believe in ghosts, Mr. Graves." "One last thing," Graves added, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Tie up that beast of yours. A dog is an unclean creature. I do not like the idea of him jumping onto the bed at night. Do you understand?" "Fine," I lied. Mr. Graves left the room, closing the door behind him. But I didn't follow his last instruction. In this God-forsaken spooky house, Rover was my only ally. That night, Rover slept right beside me on the bed. Outside, the storm raged, but inside, a heavier darkness was waiting. Deep in the night, I was jolted awake by agonizing pain. Someone was strangling me. Two hands, cold and hard as iron, had clamped around my throat, squeezing with inhuman force. My breath was cut off. My lungs felt like they were about to burst. Just as I thought my life was slipping away, the deadly grip suddenly loosened and vanished. Immediately, the room erupted in a chaotic scuffle, a thumping, thrashing noise of a violent struggle in the dark. But I was in too much pain to pay attention. I lay there gasping, clutching my bruised throat, trying to suck air back into my lungs. When the pain subsided slightly, I realized the room had gone deathly silent. I fumbled for the matchbox and lit the lantern. The room was empty. The attacker was gone. But so was Rover. "Rover! Rover!" I called out desperately, but there was no response. I checked my watch. It was 1 a.m. I looked through the doorway into the hallway. The darkness out there seemed thick, almost solid, like a predatory beast waiting to pounce. A primal fear gripped me, and I slammed the door shut and bolted it. But how did the attacker get in? I had bolted this door before going to bed. I scanned the room frantically and noticed something I hadn't seen before. A faint outline in the wooden paneling. A hidden door. I pushed against it and it creaked open. Instantly, a wave of nauseating putrid air hit me, nearly knocking me unconscious. Holding the lantern high, I peered into the secret chamber. The sight that met my eyes froze the blood in my veins. The floor was littered with piles of bones, human skulls, and bloody entrails. In one corner, a fresh, severed human head lay on the dirt floor, its mouth agape in a silent scream. I slammed the secret door shut, my heart hammering against my ribs. What kind of monster's lair had I walked into? I felt suffocated. I needed air. Ignoring Graves's warning, I threw open the window facing the cemetery. Outside, the storm was at its peak. Rain lashed down in sheets. Lightning tore across the sky, and the wind howled like a banshee. But in the flashes of lightning, the cemetery seemed to come alive. I heard the wailing of infants, maniacal laughter from behind the tombstones, and the sound of dragging chains approaching and retreating. Shadowy figures, will-o'-the-wisps, danced over the graves. Was this hell let loose, or was I losing my mind? Thump, thump. Someone was pushing against the main door of my room. My hair stood on end. I didn't know what grotesque horror waited on the other side. The pushing became violent, accompanied by a familiar sound. Woof, woof. "Rover!" I cried out. I rushed to unbolt the door. As soon as it opened, Rover leaped in and jumped straight onto my chest. In this God-forsaken house, hugging my dog felt like embracing my only family. Then, the lantern light fell on Rover's face. My breath hitched. His muzzle and jaws were drenched in fresh, bright red blood. I stared at him in confusion. Before I could process what had happened, I heard shouting from the garden below. Voices, many of them. I ran to the window. Through the rain, I saw the bobbing lights of 6 or 7 lanterns and a group of about 15 men marching toward the house. From their uniforms, I recognized the sheriff's deputies, and leading them was the station master. Realizing help had arrived, I grabbed my lantern and ran out of the room, down the stairs, and out onto the porch. The police were crowded around the bottom of the grand staircase, their voices raised in shock. "What is going on?" I shouted, pushing through the crowd. The circle of men parted, and I saw it. The skeletal charcoal-black body of Mortimer Graves lay crumpled at the foot of the stairs. His eyes were rolled back, staring sightlessly at the ceiling. Eyes that clearly showed he was no longer of this world. But the most gruesome detail was his throat. A massive chunk of flesh had been torn out, leaving a gaping bloody hole. Suddenly, it all made sense. Rover's bloody muzzle, the struggle in the dark. Mortimer Graves had come into my room to kill me, but Rover had attacked him, tearing out his throat and ending his reign of terror. The station master stared at the corpse, his eyes wide with disbelief. This is impossible," he whispered. The sheriff looked up. What are you talking about, Miller? The station master knelt beside the body, shining his lantern directly onto the dead man's face. He looked up, his face pale. There is no doubt about it, Sheriff. This is the body of old man Jacob from the valley. He died of a wasting fever exactly 2.5 months ago. I was at his funeral. Dead? I stammered. But he was walking, talking. He died, the station master confirmed, his voice trembling. But his body wasn't cremated or buried properly, because the very next day, his corpse was stolen from the cemetery vault. A heavy silence fell over the group as the storm raged on outside. We weren't looking at a man. We were looking at a ghoul, a reanimated corpse that had been luring men to this house to feed on them, until a loyal dog finally put him back in the grave where he belonged.